Hey everyone, it's Movie Lover 120 here, and I'm here with a brand new franchise ranking. And this franchise ranking is going to be for yet another horror slasher franchise. And this one has less sequels though. And but anyway, yeah, and this is going to be for the Scream franchise, which started in 1996 and is currently going to this day with the sixth film set to come out next year. So anyway, let's get started, and we're going to be ranking them once again from best to worst. So kicking off at my number one favorite would probably have to be Scream, the first one, released in 1996. This is absolutely my favorite film of the franchise. It's actually one of my favorite horror movies of all time. And the film's plot is really simple. Like, someone's taken over the love of scary movies too far, and they're making a killing in the classic opening double murder sequence, which really sets the tone for the rest of the movie. It's a non-stop roller coaster ride of chills, thrills, and laughs. And of course, I just love everything about this film, from the kills thing. What I really love about this film is the really great acting performances from stars Neve Campos, Skeet Ulrich, Matthew Lillard, Jamie Kennedy, Courtney Cox, Drew Barrymore in a cameo in the first scene, and Roger Jackson. And I also really love the effective creepy costume for the killer Ghostface, especially with that ghost mask he has and black robe. And unlike most horror movie villains, Ghostface is just a normal human being and only uses a normal hunting knife. However, this only helps make the situation more relatable and thus scarier. There's many humorous in-jokes and self-aware characters too, like Sidney Prescott, Tatum Riley do lots of horror movie references too, and probably the most well-known scene is when Ghostface informs one of the characters that the killer is in the first Friday the 13th movie is not Jason but his mother, which even to this day a lot of people who haven't seen the movies don't even know about. And I really love the kill scenes, and I really love all the characters in this film, specifically Sidney Prescott. And yeah, this is just my favorite film of the franchise, and I would easily give this a 9.5 out of 10. When it comes to the bad qualities, I think my bad qualities would be that while the pop culture references are still memorable, they can get a bit dull at times, but despite that, this is still my favorite film of the franchise. So kicking off at second place would probably have to be Scream 2, the first sequel to the film, released a year after the first film in 1997. And the plot of this one as well is set 2 years after the events of Scream, and Sidney Prescott and Randy are attending Windsor College, and they're trying to get on with their lives until a new Ghostface killing spree begins. And with the help of Dewey Gill once again, Sidney must find out who's behind the murders, and the body count goes up. The list of suspects goes down. So, let's get started with the good qualities. The good qualities would be that, once again, the actors such as David Arquette, Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, and Sarah Michelle Gellar still give some wonderful performances, as well as Jamie Kennedy, of Dewey Riley, Sidney Prescott, Gail Weathers, Sissy Cooper, etc. And the movie has some good references from the previous horror movies or non-horror films, like such as the scene in the beginning of the movie where the movie theater was playing a fictional movie called Stab at the beginning of the movie, where based off the events of the first film, where Casey Becker portrayer gets nude and turns on the shower, which is a reference to Jenna Leigh's shower scene in Psycho. The wonderful soundtrack performed by both Danny Elfman and Hans Zimmer. And I especially also really love the sequel talk scene at the class as well. And I really like how in this one the killer of the movie was actually the mom of the killer from the first one, who wanted revenge for her son's death. This one, I really like that it was kind of creative, and having a parent of the killer be the killer in the sequel. That's kind of what I really liked about this one as well. I kind of liked how in this one Gail has more character developments, which was nice to see, because I didn't feel like she had a lot of character development in the first one, so it was nice to see a bit of better character development there. And once again, I still loved all the kill scenes. When it comes to the bad qualities, I didn't really like the twist that Mickey being the killer is underwhelming, because he's only absent for 45 minutes of the movie before the twist, and in a couple of poor writing choices too, when Ghostface is unconscious, Sidney and Haley don't even check who the killer is underneath. And I'm not too big of a fan of the cafeteria scene either, as well. And then I also did like how who was only just mentioned in the first one, Cotton Weary does actually gets kind of a role in this movie, and I really like Lee Schreiber's performance as him as well. But despite the bad qualities I have with this film, and while it's not as good as the first one, I still enjoy Scream 2 as one of my favorite horror sequels of all time. and I give that movie an 8.5 out of 10. So kicking off in third place would probably have to be the one that came out recently, and the one that about a few months ago, and also came out on DVD this month. And I also reviewed this movie at the beginning of the year. And that is, of course, Scream 2022, which should be called Scream 5, not Scream. So I remember liking this movie a little too much back when I first saw it in theaters, and then I saw it a second time, and I kind of noticed some of the flaws and people were talking about it, so now it's been bumped down to third place. I kind of overhyped this a little too much when I first saw it, but I still think it's kind of good nonetheless. I respect if X-Blaze didn't like this movie, but I personally thought it was pretty good, even though it's still not as good as 1 or 2. But anyway, what's the plot of this one? Well, 25 years after a streak of brutal murders shocked the quiet town of Woodsboro, a new killer is doomed to Ghostface mask and has been targeting a group of teenagers to resurrect secrets from the town's deadly past. Yeah, it's plot of me. So when it comes to the good qualities, there would be that I really like they at least returned back the iconic cast of Ned Campbell as Sidney Prescott, Courtney Cox as Gil Weathers, David Arquette as Dewey Riley, Marley Shelton as Judy Hicks from the fourth movie, and Roger L. Jackson as the voice of Ghostface. These who were in the original film, while Judy Hicks was only appeared in the fourth one. But Ghostface is I really like that Ghostface is still an imitating and scary horror villain who still acts like a normal human and using the hunting knife. But now he's actually using different weapons, not just a knife. It's amazing acting from the cast. That's a major improvement from the third and fourth movie, especially the new cast, and in the movie's self-awareness, satire, and meta-humor is still on point. And like Scream 4, I also like they did not water down the franchise, improving it retains the charm of its predecessor. Brian Tyler's soundtrack is pretty awesome, and it's a spot-on push from Marco Beltrami, who composed a score for the previous 4 movies and fitting the horror tone. It even tackles some serious problems concerning movies in Hollywood, the problems of concerning toxic fandom and entitled fans, and this is shown through the motives of the film's main antagonists, as they were built to have went on a killing spree of Ghostface because they hated a recent stab movie, believing that Hollywood was running out of ideas, but it was also kind of a bad quality I had, and that speaking of the killers, that brings me the bad quality. So for the bad qualities, I really did not like the killers, Richie or Amber, because they were so annoying, especially during the finale when Amber cowardly begged for her life before getting shot and burned. And I also didn't like how they portrayed Dewey in this film as basically divorced and now living in a trailer park, because it literally just makes the ending of 3 where he proposes to Gale pointless. And that was one of the few good qualities of 3. And I really also hated how they killed him off. And I also didn't like Sidney was barely in the film until near the end of the movie. But however, this is still a decent movie for what it is, and I give it a 7.5 out of 10. Kicking off at number 4 would have to be 2011's Scream 4, aka the one that satirizes remakes around this era. So this was a film that came out around 11 years after Scream 3. It was the first one in a while because Scream 3 was supposed to be the end of the franchise. But let's get into the plot. Well, Sidney Prescott, now the author of a self-help book, returns home to Woodsboro on the last stop of her book tour. There she reconnects with Sheriff Dewey and Gil, who are now married, as well as her cousin Jill and her Aunt Katie. Unfortunately, Sidney's appearance also brings about the return of Ghostface, putting Sidney, Gil, and Dewey, along with Jill, her friends, and the whole town of Woodsboro in danger. So, it's the flaw of the movie. So, now when it comes to this one, I still think it's pretty good for what it is, but it's still not as good as the first 2 by any means. It was still definitely an improvement in the movie we needed after the disaster of Scream 3, which I'm going to get to in a bit. So for the good qualities, really like the good qualities are that many performances are still great, especially from old performances of David Arquette and Neve Campbell. The soundtrack that was composed by Marco Beltrami is amazing. Some great cinematography. And I also liked how much better this was in the third film, like I've already said. New cast also does a good job diving into the series, playing the roles of popular cheerleaders, AV geeks, and bad girls who want to have fun. And I also really like the film class scene where they show all the film posters, and such as for John Carpenter's The Thing. And although a little overacted, the new generation still did pretty good in the roles they were given. And a third positive would be that, and I really like the plot twist of who the killer was. Especially considering that the killer was actually Jill. I really like that. I really like they made Jill so evil and psychotic in this film, and it's what you really need for a Ghostface killer. They need to be evil, they need to be psychotic, and they nailed it perfectly. perfectly here. And she was the one I was least expecting to be the killer, because throughout the whole film it's set up to look like Trevor's the killer, and Trevor literally acts like the kind of guy who would be the Ghostface killer, but it turns out he's just another victim. I really like that. Really like that. So when it comes to the bad qualities, that I didn't really like Gail wasn't in this movie much, or she didn't really do much in this film a lot either. I mean, I also didn't really like how we never found. I kind of don't really like how this movie ends abruptly after the hospital sequence, and I feel like the ending should have been a little done better, but it is what it is. But so despite the bad qualities, I still enjoy 4 decently, but not as much as 1 or 2, like with the one I just mentioned at number 3. But I still find it better than the next one I'm going to talk about, and I give Scream 4 a 7 out of 10. And at number 5, the number 1 worst Scream movie to me would easily have to go to 2000's Scream 3! This is easily the worst Scream movie ever. And we're gonna get to why, but let's get on with the plot. Well, the last installment in the Scream trilogy is set in Hollywood, where Stab 3 is being shot, with Gale Weathers and Dwight Riley on set as advisors to Jennifer Joly. Unfortunately, a killer decides to off the cast in the order of the screenplay, and only Sid Prescott, now in hiding until the killer tracks her down, can solve the riddle. That's the plot of the movie. Now, let's start with the bad qualities. My bad qualities with this film is that the kills in this movie are downgraded and compared to the previous movies in the series. And it was due to the Columbine High School massacre that the studios asked Craven to rein back on the violence, which makes no sense for a movie that is R-rated. Even with an R rating, this movie lacks any blood effects or anything that the previous movies had. Like, seriously? Scream is not a franchise for kids. It was never written for kids, for Pete's sakes, Hollywood. The majority of the characters are even so uninteresting, wasted, and they have little development. There's way too many cartoony moments, like when Ghostface breaks someone's neck by flipping the carpet that they were standing on. And Roman is the Ghostface killer here, which probably nobody would see coming for the wrong reasons, because 1, he's barely in the film, and he's mostly in the background for the scenes that he is in, and his story that ties with Billy and Stu is so atrocious and dumbly written. And I also hated how they pulled an Alien 3 on Cotton Weary from the second one, which just straight up dies in the beginning of the movie, because it just made his happy ending in 2 so pointless. Like, really? After he finally got his happy ending in Scream 2, you're just gonna kill him off like that? Are you having a laugh? However, there's still some good qualities I like with this movie. I still once again like the acting in this movie, especially from David Arquette, Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, etc. Amazing soundtrack that was performed by Marco Beltrami. And I also really liked the cameo appearance from the late Carrie Fisher as a receptionist named Bianca. And I also love the cameos of Jane Silent Bob and Kevin Smith's new Ask Schooniverse in this. And then I don't blame Wes Craven for this movie, guys. I blame the studio interference for interfering. Like, I felt bad Wes didn't get to make the finale he wanted to do. So yeah. But despite the good qualities, I still hate this movie, and I think it's the worst from the Scream franchise, and I give it a low 4.5 out of 10. And there we go. That's it for my ranking of the Scream franchise. So, from best to worst, it goes like, at first place, Scream, second place, Scream 2, third place, Scream 2022, or Scream 5 it should be called, fourth place, Scream 4, and fifth place, worst, Scream 3. So there we go. I want to know in the comments below, for those who have seen the Scream franchise, how you would rank the movies, and I can respect opinions as long as you respect mine. And until then, that'll be it for this review. Thank you all for watching, and if you like this and want to see more, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Movie Lover 120.